Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG Podcast, episode number 206 of the show, and a Merry Christmas to all, and to all LitRPG Christmassy weekend. We're actually recording this a little bit prior to Christmas Eve. I want to make sure we got this episode out before, so everybody have nice, lovely things to read for their holiday weekend. And just because of the way the calendar ends up, we're going to be recording again before the next year. So this will be the last episode of the year. So I want to wish everybody a happy holidays, and have a couple new reviews for you this week. Only 3. Again, we're recording a little bit early, and lots of folks are off on holidays, and so it's just going to be 3 nice little reviews, a little bit of news, and we'll get into it. We're going to, of course, start off with the LitRPG news section. And in LitRPG news, just pull up some stuff that might keep you entertained during your holidays or your great conversations with your relatives. We actually have a recommendation from a LitRPG reader, a listener rather, for a D&D Web-series called One for All, created by Deerstalker Pictures. It's on YouTube. They only have a couple episodes right now, but just watching them is very entertaining. It's a little meta in that you're all not only watching the people who are playing this D&D campaign, and it's production, it's obviously scripted and everything, but you're also watching their characters, but their characters are also talking meta, so it's very interesting, it's fun, very LitRPG-ish. I thought they were really funny, so go enjoy it. We have a link in the show notes for you to go check that out, but again, that's going to be called One for All, created by Deerstalker Pictures. Deerstalker Pictures is the actual YouTube channel name, so feel free to go check them out. There's some other fun stuff there too. And other things for you to do this holidays weekend, we actually have Christmas-themed LitRPG stories. So there's not a lot, but these are some stories that I think you'll enjoy, and that includes The Goblin That Stole Christmas by Apollo Thorne. It is a story about a goblin set in his, my favorite story it is. It's one of them. It's an enjoyable one. I think it's I forget the name of it, but anyway, it's a fun story. Go enjoy it. It's one of my favorite Christmas stories. I actually renamed it from something else just for us, for the podcast. And he actually put it up recently on Royal Road. The previous place it was hosted at, I guess, stopped working. So he actually put it up on the road just for us. So go enjoy it. It's a fun story. Also, Freehaven Online, the 3rd book specifically in that series called Winter Dungeonland. Very Christmassy thing. There's, I think, Thanksgiving and Christmas themed events in this trapped in the MMO kind of game thing. So it's very holiday themed. So definitely check that out. One of my favorite, funniest Christmassy things is, of course, Cooper's Christmas Carol, Caverns and Creatures story. That is so hilariously fun, especially if you're a fan of the Critical Failure series by Robert Bevan. This is a short story in the series with the character Cooper. Go check it out. Really funny, entertaining. And last but not least, of course, is a little more slightly serious. It's Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, a LitRPG novella. King Arthur, LitRPG book number 1. So that one is, it's a little more traditional Christmassy, in that the story starts off during a Christmas holiday with like King Arthur and his Round Table Knights. So it's kind of this interpretation of a traditional story that I always find enjoyable to read myself. So there we go. So there's some nice holiday reading for you. We also have some stories that came out recently this last week, including the 7th book in the Stonehaven League series by Carrie Summers. We also have the 2nd book in the Glory of the Formation Emperor series. We have a new story from Stuart Gross, and I'm actually genuinely excited to read this one. I wasn't sure if it was going to be LitRPG based upon like the novel description. It does seem to be that way though. Purchase it. It's not on Kindle Limited, so it's going to be a purchase. But it's a story. It's a tabletop D&D story, and in the forward, the author's like, this might not be for everybody. It's more of a D&D if you love D&D tabletop stuff. This actually shows all like the dice rolls, and a bunch of, it's really super crunchy. It doesn't have any of the erotic stuff that some of the other stuff does, which is why I'm interested in it. I've always enjoyed Stuart's story. It's just that some of it's not for me specifically, and I think this one's going to be more on the lines of a generally appealing story. So I'm hoping to enjoy it this weekend myself. We also have something that just kind of popped out of nowhere. It's called Gameport, the Blue Matter series. There we go. It lists itself as Gamelit, but inside there's definitely quests and such. So it is technically LitRPG, and there is RPG progression in there. I'm not sure how good it's going to be. I've never heard of the author. This seemed the first thing in this from this author for for LitRPG, so it might be a right to market novel. We'll have to wait and see. In new audiobooks, we have a couple here as well. Code Hero Champion is playing book number 2, a new story. I enjoyed it. We also have Red Snatch, Digital Sorcery book number 3, which is a humorous LitRPG story from David M. Zahn. And that's it. Just a couple audiobooks, and we have more stuff coming out in the near future, of course, including on December 26th, Shroud of the Rargeser Enora book number 6. We have the third book in the Scourge War series, Resist, that'll be out on December 27th. We have The Land, Chaos Seeds, book number 8, called Monsters, will be out on January the 1st. We also have January 6th, a new book from Vasily Mihenko called No Mistakes, World of Change, book number 1. On January the 9th, it'll be the Destroying Plague, Discardium, book number 3. On January 20th, it'll be Dungeons of Strata, Deepest Dungeons, book number 1. January 24th, it'll be Quest for Dominion, Illiteracy Saga, Hero Online, book number 4. On January 28th, it'll be Reading Online series, the last book in that particular series, I think. It'll be books number 7. January 31st, it'll be the second book in the Endless Fantasy Online series, rather. January 31st, it'll be Ultima, Legends Online book number 4. On February the 4th, it'll be Battlemaster. On February 6th, it'll be the third book in the Bagay series called Skull and Thrones. On February the 10th, it'll be Invasion book number 2, An Equation with One Unknown. On February 29th, it'll be Gods of Ash and Amber, the fourth book in the Seeds of Chaos series. March 9th, it'll be the first book in the Project Stellar series. March 20th, Hero Online book number 5. And March 20th as well, it'll be the third book in the Underdog book series, The Dark Continent. And on April 2nd, it'll be Eastbound and Town, the 8th book in the Good Guys series. And April the 15th, it'll be Dragonheart, book number 5. So that will be out. And that's all in the future, just until the April. And on to new releases and reviews. And we're beginning this week with our first review for War Aeternus, book number 5, End of the Faithful, written by Charles Dean. It is 409 pages. It is $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. Here's the author's description. Lee has barely established his foothold in the kingdom of Burnfield, and yet enemy forces are already rushing to attack. Almost all the other heralds have been stamped out of existence by the anti-religious zealot King Ramon, and now that the ruthless rule of the Empire has turned its sights towards the newly conquered realm and started marching a massive army easily capable of crushing the entire kingdom beneath their feet straight towards Lee's doorstep. With no other choice, Lee has to turn to his nemesis who's plagued his dreams, the Mistress of Shadows, for help. Now, with everything on the line, Lee has to race against the clock to gather the last remaining world stones and finally finish the God's Cruel game and close out the final chapter of War Aeternus before King Ramon puts an end to the faithful. So there we go. Full disclosure, I did minor beta reading for this story. I purchased a copy when it became available, though. And the actual reviews, it's relatively simple. I'm been a big fan of the series, the entire the way through. Book 5 is actually the last book in this series. And it's kind of sad. And it's also like, oh, this is not a lot of little bit series actually get a proper ending, and this one definitely does. It's a good ending, too. With the exception of a few minor things, there's a good resolution to all the series plot lines. There's a very satisfying ending that tells you how everybody ends up. The story has all the good action, adventure, and emotional development that fans of the series have come to know and enjoy. And I like the fact that the author didn't make anyone sacred in this way. So now, I'll say right off the bat, this is minor spoiler, but not everybody survives the story, and the question is who is not going to, as well as what the final resolution is. And so, go read it, go enjoy it. It's good stuff. I've enjoyed it personally. Gets a solid 7.5 out of 10 from me for War Aeternus, book number 5, End of the Faithful, with again a score of 7.5 out of 10. Go enjoy the end of this epic LitRPG story. And next we have The Waste, Underdog, book number 2, LitRPG series, written by Alex Ostachuk. It is 447 pages, $6.99. It is not available on Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately. Here's the author's description. Eric has survived where people much stronger than him have found their deaths. And not just that, he's managed to activate his magic supply, tame one of the most dangerous dungeon monsters, find the ancient city of monsters hunters, and rescue Jay, the girl abandoned by the scouts in Gulper's lair. He left the dungeons of the Crooked Mountains behind him now. His path leads him to Orcus, where our freshly minted mage intends to finally free himself of his debt repayment oath. But as soon as Eric and Jay descend into the valley, they discover that the local barons have been attacked by young Corin's men who have swept through their neighbors' estates, pillaging and plundering. This makes Eric's task all the more difficult. He has to return to his home city without ending up in his enemy's clutches. You'd think his natural cautiousness and the acute instincts of his pet Georgie would make his journey a walk in the park, but fickle Lady Luck has her own ideas. Once again, Eric is being pulled into a bloody vortex of dangers. So there you go. And that's actually, that's a really good summary of the big events in the story. Full disclosure, I received advanced copy for review. I purchased a copy when it became available. And this is a nice sequel to the series. I honestly don't like it as much as book 1 in the series. But it's still very solid slice of action and adventure fighting, and that's kind of what it is. All the game mechanics from the first book still exist here. The main character continues to exploit his unique flaw in order to gain power with the tablets and slates. And if you read book 1, you know what that is already. But on the whole, it doesn't feel quite as unique. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's not a book 1 anymore. It's not an entirely new and fresh story with whatever new game mechanics and characters and whatever else. You know what those things are, so they're not a surprise here. And so that's going to always, at least for me, it always drops my enjoyment down a little bit. So I always try to see if there's something else that's going to be new and fresh and continue to capture my interest. And there's nothing particularly new. There's nothing bad about it. There's still nice fights, there's action, adventure, there's a little more expansion in the world building section by introducing new kinds of monsters and characters and cultures. But it really is just like your fellow main character as he goes through these little adventures and gets into these tight spots and situations and progresses and advances in RPG matters. And he gets like some new companions and stuff and he explores and fights and all the good stuff. But again, that's kind of what it is. So very good. Slice of life action adventure story. It's still LitRPG in the same way that it was in the first book. So if you liked book 1, you're probably going to enjoy this one as well. For me, I liked it a little bit less. So for me, it's a good score. So it's not as good as book 1. This one gets a score of 7.4 out of 10. That's The Waste, Underdog, book number 2, with a score of 7.4 out of 10. And next up is going to be The World's Strongest Farmer, written by Ty Havold. It is 204 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Limited. Here is the author's description. Robert wants nothing more than to be a farmer like his dad. Tend the fields, harvest the crops, and kill an occasional monster who breaks through the fog the fog wall that borders his home. However, getting what he wants isn't so easy when everyone's job class is designated by the gods and they have plans for the would-be farmer. A pestilence that hasn't been seen for 200 years has discovered a way to pierce the fog wall, and the world is going to need a hero. Will Raverick take up the fabled hero job class and leave everything he loves willingly, or will the gods need to get creative? How is a farmer supposed to save the world? So there you go. This is a very action-oriented LitRPG story, where a young man loses his father to a monster army, and to honor him takes the same class of farmer. He also has some other classes, which will be a unique thing for him in this world. Only the kid is not content to be powerless, but seeks to gain power and power enough to rescue his dad from the deadly monsters. The story is mostly slice of life, with the main character heading to train, learn about magic, key, and monster fights. Good regular fights are going to be a draw for the story. Game mechanic wise, there's our semi-regular character sheets, mostly in the beginning. Towards the end, they kind of disappear a little bit. But the characters have level stats, blessings, bonuses, all the good stuff. And there are regular references to these kind of things. I think the biggest mechanic is going to be the ability to class change or to kind of use different aspects of different classes in the story. That's going to be its big kind of draw thing because it's supposed to be a unique thing in this particular world. And use those unique spells, abilities, and combinations to be powerful. Also, in addition to the story about mid to late story, again, there is a bigger emphasis on key usage and cultivation. And that seems to be a unique thing for the main character and his dad and himself. But like other people don't seem to be able to use it as much. So that's also going to be a little bit of a cultivation thing aspect to the story as well. Overall, though, most of this is going to be the big draw is going to be the action. So if you're in the mood for something with a bit of action adventure, this might be right up your alley. But there's not a lot of RPG progression in this particular story. It exists. It is there. I think the class thing is probably the bigger draw here. But even then, a lot of it's just fighting. And that might be what you're in the mood for. I enjoyed it. Good score 7.3 out of 10 for me. That's World's Strongest Farmer with a score of 7.3 out of 10. And that is it. That's the show, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's short and sweet, just a couple reviews. And I want to make sure I wish everybody happy holidays for the weekend and for this whole coming week. And maybe have a nice new year as well. I won't be seeing you. Won't be recording until the next year just because of the way, again, the month happens to end. So thanks a lot for hanging out with us the year. Had a great time doing the show and recording and writing stuff. I have some great new projects coming out personally on the writing side of things for the next upcoming 2020, and I hope you guys will give it a chance. And until then, I want to make sure I thank you for taking the time to spend a whole year with me in the podcast and our wonderful little community where we read stories about games and RPG mechanics, and it's a weird little thing, but our gamer culture, I think, supports a huge fan base of readers and writers and what we love talking to each other. And of course, there are plenty of places to find us. We have links in the show notes for some Facebook pages for some of those places that readers and authors kind of gather and hang out and have a good time. So definitely check out the show notes there. But again, thank you for listening to me for an entire extra year now. And until we can hang out again next year, remember to go read some LitRPG. Goodbye, everybody.